This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4, up on YouTube Live. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on today?
How are we feeling this afternoon?
Feeling good. I'm just waiting for my video to pop in. Hopefully that happens momentarily because I have a lot of interesting things to say today.
A lot of interesting things to say.
Because you've been sitting at home or whatever you've been doing, which is fair.
Sitting at home.
You know what
You're talking about me, I'm assuming, the last couple of days.
Yes. Brian Hayes did not have the opportunity to weigh in on lots that's been going on in Leafland. And that... I just figured we just...
It was sad yesterday, Noodles. It was sad.
But first 30 minutes, I was like, let's just give him the floor because there's
this guy's got stuff to say. I felt like yesterday was just behind Stamkos and PK. That big day that you were, I think you were sick or something.
I was. Yeah, that one, that was a massive day because that was also Taylor Hall for... Adam Larson, I believe.
Yeah.
Like it was
a
all
massive
the same
day.
day.
Bobby Mack broke the internet that day.
Yes, you're right. 1 for 1. That was Hall for Larson. It was PK for Weber. It was Stamkos going back to Tampa. And I'm sitting there, sick as a dog, like, well, I guess I'm not going to be a part of this.
With snot dribbling down your nose.
Yeah. I missed a lot of big days. And yesterday, listen, I wanted to be here because it was Joe Bowen's, last call, and Bonesy, was phenomenal last night, and just an unbelievable career, and he was on the show, and that was awesome. And I didn't know this Athletic article was coming out, though. I wish, Jonas is a good friend of mine, CJ, Myrtle, I love these guys. Maybe give me a heads up so I can make sure I'm in here.
Wow, you can't do that with something like that.
I guess not. I guess you can't really tip people off, but... yeah, and then today you've got, the locker cleaning out, and the season's finally over. We played, that was Joe Cocker coming in, feeling all right.
Wait for Hello Darkness. Where's Hello Darkness?
So this is worthy of getting into because our good friend Buffalo Donnie, he texted wondering the same thing. He said, Hello Darkness today. No. There it is for you.
Why?
It's been dark for 2 months, 3 months. It's been 6 months of darkness.
But the other day we fought it off and said, no, you can't do it until the end of the season. Today is the end of the season. And I know it's a stupid tradition.
That's not stupid, but it's a tradition of the playoffs, of a choke in the playoffs, not this garbage for 6 months. That's where I start. My initial reaction was because Doogie asked the same thing. Doogie, Production 101, Doogie 20 minutes ago said, are we going with Hello Darkness? And I said, honestly, my instincts are that's after you choke to the Habs or the Bruins or Tampa or Columbus. Right. That's Hello Darkness. I can't believe they lost again in the playoffs. This is... I don't even know how to describe what the hell this was.
There's only one thing to do, Doogie, in the new wave of how we're doing business. Ask AI if we should have played Hello Darkness to start the show.
Well, and it might come back and say, you know what? It's been, unfortunately, a tradition of this show for however many years.
Who knows?
And it might say you guys should have gone with it. I thought we were just naturally going to do with it because it's the end of the season. You're right. This was like a slow bleed or burn where the corpse finally died last night.
I couldn't wait. I've never watched a hockey game only for the guy that wasn't even on TV. I watched the game on TV and I was like, I'm watching this for Joe Bowen. And I don't even know why. They didn't show him. You didn't see him. And I was just like, that was it for Bonesy. Such a great guy, a legend, and that was his last game.
Yeah.
Really, really sad stuff.
Yeah, it is. To end that way. I was watching the Blue Jay game. I'm like, this game could not be less meaningful for either team. Credit Ottawa, and I guess the Leafs, they lose, so they finish fifth last, and they have a 42% chance of keeping their pick now. And It's going to come down to the lottery balls, and that's going to be a big part of their future.
When is that, by the way?
It's in a couple of weeks. Generally, it's either in between the first and second round, I think it is. Dude, you look that up. Post that into AI or Chat GPT and figure that out. But it's coming up soon, and that's going to obviously determine a lot of what is going to happen the rest of the offseason, and a lot of things are going to happen. But I was tuning into the Blue Jays, and they blow a game last night in the eighth. They lost again today. So the Jays are now 7-11. They are 4-11 in their last 15 games. So the baton is being passed. The Leafs are like, here, you guys take it, which is awesome because, the Leafs started their year with optimism and a belief that they would make the playoffs for most people, not everyone. I thought they would, though. I thought they'd be a competitive team and in the fight, and it was just never something that looked like it was going to materialize once you got 20, 25, 30 games in. And the Blue Jays, the same thing. Now, it's much earlier, clearly, and they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but they're losing a lot, and they're not a very good baseball team right now. So not a ton of optimism with either teams. The Raptors tip off on Saturday. But as for the Leafs, yesterday was different. That article, I heard you guys talking about it. It read like a Stephen King novel if you're a Leaf fan.
It's a horror show.
The amount of things that were like, you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that. And then you're like, oh. And I honestly, spoke for a lot of people that grew up in this area. And that's why I missed you, Brian, because you literally grew up that, believing and living it every second. But O talked about the brand, and I thought it was an unbelievable point that I hadn't actually tuned into until he laid it out for me in AK. And
I think ultimately that is what comes out of it. And honestly, I thought it changed my perception of what I really cared about hearing from the players today. And ultimately, a lot of guys spoke, and Berube spoke, and they're all going to be pretty careful. Today was about Matthews, first and foremost for me. Willie, to an extent, I thought it was great. Morgan Riley said loves being here, wants to stay here, but he knows change is certainly possible. And I expected Craig Berube, who's got 2 years left on his deal, to come out and say, yes, I think I'll still be the coach. What else is he going to say? I'm not going to be the coach?
Dude,
of course he's going to say that.
I think someone asked Craig Berube if he's ready and willing to be using artificial intelligence next year.
Did you see that? Did you see the pause he took? He was like, he took it and he was careful with his words.
Who was that asked that question?
I don't know.
Keith Pelly?
50 people in there.
Was it Keith?
He looked at Craig Berube, who is probably can't wait to get out of that building, is so fuming, and he said, are you ready and willing to be using AI next year as for coaching? And they looked at Craig Berube. Come on, man.
Honest to God, what if it's Suni Mehta that comes in and that's what he likes to use is
Jamie,
AI methods.
Gotta hang on a sec here. I gotta put a stop to this stuff right now. Like, if anybody thinks that this guy's the brains behind the Panthers, sorry. It's just stop it. No way.
He's a contributing factor to the whole operation.
Let me just bring up this point, Brian. Do you think that this guy was big on getting a 35-year-old Smurf and Brad Marchand aging? Do you think that he crunched the numbers on him and said bring him in? Mikula, Seth Jones, big tough Florida Panther. Do people out there honestly? Do you know how easy it is for us to find out? He's not responsible for the Florida Panthers. But what, he's going to put his arm up right now and say, I'm the guy behind the scenes that crunches the numbers? This is lunacy. So people got to cut the crap. Stop it.
A couple things on that. One, it doesn't mean we don't know if he was anti-Brad Marchand either.
Dude, I'm just trying to bring across the point,
I get it,
Brian.
but you got to be careful with, I get what you're saying, but that doesn't mean he's anti that kind of stuff. I don't know the guy. What I will say, and I think what you're driving at, is it does feel like some people would prefer Sonny Mehta over Bill Zito.
That's exactly my point.
That's insanity.
That's insanity, though.
Yes,
but that's the
obviously.
thing.
But that is what is starting to percolate, and there is a group. I don't know if they're Leaf fans, general NHL fans, hockey people, whatever you want to describe them as. That's crazy. Now, Zito's not available. Zito's not coming here. But if he was, and you had both options, no one on earth should take anyone but Bill Zito in that scenario.
That's a great point.
But I think the idea is he's made as being described as very progressive, thinks differently. Now, I don't know how Keith Pelley would necessarily answer that, but I think it's unfair to label him also as just this guy who's punching in numbers to a computer. We don't know that. Nobody knows this guy. He wasn't anyone that was on anyone's radar publicly in this city a week ago. So nobody knows. If he gets hired, then he will have an opportunity to describe himself, explain his plan, and put it into action. But listen, I don't want this show to also turn into like we're just goofing on progression and moving in a different direction. I mean, they're going to use different stuff. They got to figure it out. Ultimately, though, they've got to find a way to put a program together here that is respectable and that allows for winning. You know, like that's really what it comes down to.
And attractive, too.
Yes,
attractive
exactly.
to other people that want to sign here, not just because it's a big city and a great city and they spend money and all of that. Like, you put together a program in any city where people go, I need to be there because I want to be there because of player X, Y, and Z, culture X, Y, and Z. And then you throw in the fans and, you know, the city and all of that other type of stuff. That's what needs to be laid out, Brian, is all of that type of stuff. And I think that's where the questions were asked today. You know, do you believe, you know, a lot of them, listen, they weren't going to say anything different today. They were going to say, the culture's fine. They were going to, like, you're not going to go at it. There were a couple of comments last night after the game where I was like, oh, that kind of, and it was from like players that were kind of on the outside type of thing.
Right.
You know, the Troy Stetcher comment type of thing.
Yeah, but ultimately those are just going to fall on deaf ears in the organization. And I mean, like ultimately today for me was about Matthews. Like that's what it was. First time we've seen him.
Yeah,
first time we've heard from him. Yeah, we got a lot of it. And, you know, again, I think I want to finish my point on the article coming out yesterday that it drove home. And I think when your team's in a position that they're in right now where they're, you know, they were 5-15-5 in their last 25 games and brutal, you have fundamental issues within the organization to the point where it's like what Matthews is thinking to me is way down the list. Like way down the list. And I know they're intertwined, and he's a huge part of what they are today and what they could be in the future, or if he moves on, what they could get in return.
Well, what could be above him, Brian?
The owner, the president and CEO of the company, the GM, how they operate, how they run things, how they, like, one player doesn't matter if everything above him is in disarray.
Well,
That's
said
my
it yesterday.
Point. You put Wayne Gretzky in his prime on his team, it doesn't matter. Like, if they're running an operation where it's off the rails, Wayne Gretzky in 1983 isn't doing anything for this team. Yeah. That's
what do you think Wayne Gretzky
would
do back in the day if there was some kind of decision looming and the thing was like it was coming up? Is Gretz going to stay or is he going to go? And the president of his team got in front of a mic and started talking about artificial intelligence and all this other nonsense, and that's how they're going to do business. How do you think that would make Gretz feel as a player? He'd be like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Where are we going, and what are we doing? You don't think Auston Matthews saw those clips where he was like, this guy just talked about artificial intelligence in a presser.
He was asked about them today, and I thought he did. You know, I watched the whole press conference.
Okay, why don't we play the question about his future here?
Sure.
Okay, like that's kind of the big one that people want an answer on, and where he sees this going and his place in it. This is Auston Matthews about his future and the team's future.
You know, I love being the captain of this team. I think it's an incredible honor to wake up every day and wear this jersey. And I think, you know, that's not lost on me, even, you know, despite the circumstances and the way that the season went. I mean, I can't predict the future. Obviously, there's steps that kind of have to, you know, take place. They're going to hire new leadership at management and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't really know. I think that's kind of, you know, like I said, I can't really predict the future.
But for yourself personally, is this a place you want to be or would reject any suggestion that you should not be here for the remainder of your contract?
Yeah, I think all that stuff, I mean, there's always noise and there's always chatter. You know, I think personally, you know, I really don't pay attention to all that. You know, I just focus on myself, focus on this team, and, you know, trying to be a part of the solution.
I don't even understand the answer, but
well, it's deflecting. The last part is a deflection. It starts, you use when in doubt, you use the outside noise, all that. I don't listen to it. That's number one in the PR book. The reality is, the main players on this team for a decade are just not interesting people in front of a microphone. Like, there's no other way to really put it. They're very interesting players, very captivating careers, captivating legacies. I'm not saying they're not interesting people in private. I don't know them privately. But Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Marner, they're never compelling. They're never going to take a mic and drop it with some great comment. It's just not going to happen. Now, what he didn't say is, I think, the loudest part. He had the opportunity, Matthews, today to step in and say, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I want to be here. I love the captaincy. I love the Leafs. I'm not going anywhere. I don't care who the coach is, the GM is, the president, what they're doing. I'm not leaving. This is my team, my responsibility. He did not do that. He opened the door to speculation. Honestly, it was kind of very similar to what Mitch Marner was saying towards the end of his tenure. Now, Marner was about to be a UFA. He's got 2 years left, and I'm not sitting here telling you I think it's for certain that Matthews is out of here, but he left the door open to anyone's interpretation, including the team's. And that's kind of he had an opportunity to put a stake in the ground. He chose not to do it.
You're right, Brian, but I'll throw one thing in there, and I brought it up when we were talking about the other day. It's fair for him to say, I don't know, because, if they hire somebody that says, I'm blowing it up, regardless of what Keith Pelley says or whatever, then he has to look at it. So I don't think he genuinely knows. I understand what you're saying, where he's like, doesn't matter if a guy comes in and says, I'm going to blow it up. Because I do believe somebody asked, were you all right with a 1-year retool? And he was like, kind of, we'll see again. Mm-hmm. But until he actually knows, then you can kind of lay your stake in the ground. We weren't going to get an answer.
Well, I know, but you could get an. The thing is, everyone says that we're not going to. You could get an answer, Noodles. It's his life and his career. He could have said. And the question that I think needs to be asked, and again, he may not answer it, is do you still want the responsibility of leading this team to a championship? Because that responsibility holds a lot of weight. It's not easy. You know, and I heard Crosby was on with McAfee today, and he was asked about that when he arrived, and he referenced, he got here and there were a bunch of young guys in Pittsburgh when he arrived, and they all wanted the responsibility of leading that team. And that's really what matters, right? Like, everything else actually is white noise for the players. You guys have been in the room. Yeah. If it's your room and your team, you got to drag a guy out of there. Drag him. But if he's willing to give it up or leave, then his commitment needs to be in question, right? Because that's really what it comes down to. If it's your room, your team, your passion, your obsession, your goal, I'm winning and I'm winning here.
I know.
The only way I'm out of here is if you drag me out. Well, that is the flip side of what I think is important here.
Because it's very easy, Brian, to look at a depth chart and look at the team, look what's assembled, and look what possibly could be done next year. And it's like, I'm 29. How in the hell is this team going to get to a championship level in the next 2 to 3 years? Because who the hell knows what happens to a guy's career after that? And I'm focusing on these next 5 years as like my last type of window. I could catch on somewhere or sign somewhere at the end of my career and chase a ring. But I'm looking at this roster where I've got 3 or 4 really good years left, and I don't think it's happening. Wouldn't you jump ship?
Well, and that is
or
reasonable.
At least contemplate the idea.
Here's what I would say, and you say this all the time. You have one career. It's your life. Yep. You have one career. And that has to be applied here. If we're going to apply it to the other 31 markets, it's got to be applied here to be fair to Matthews or anybody else. I would say, and I've made this point many times with all these core players here, they never went through a dark period. This team put Auston Matthews on a pedestal the second he got here and said, you're in the playoffs. Go show us what you got for 9 years.
9 years.
He never went through a dark period. And now there's one really dark season, and it's incredibly dark. And you're out? I think he'd have to explain himself.
It's a fair point.
He may not care. He may not care. But if we're talking legacy here, this is the captain of the Maple Leafs. This is something, his words, I take a ton of pride in this. If the first bad season you're like, I'm out of here, okay, then I think that's going to affect his legacy. And I think he has to understand that. Again, he may not care, but it's the first time they've missed the playoffs. He didn't have to go through a 3-year. He's not Connor Bedard. He's not Celebrini. He's not sitting there saying, man, we're not even close. He walked right in, and he was in the playoffs. The first time the rubber hits the road, he's thinking, this isn't for me.
I know. But you have to look at that one dark time, that one dark year, and say, is this an isolated season?
One-off.
Is it a one-off? And I think the answer that anybody with half of a brain would say, this looks like more than a one-off to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. There's just too many elements to it that would lead you to believe. And there has been remarkable turnarounds. I bring up the Montreal Canadiens a lot. They were terrible one year, and they had a turnaround the next season. They made the playoffs, and I actually think they even won a round that year. Like, there can be a turnaround. But, man, like, guys, all three of us talk to hockey people basically all day, every day. We need a question, we phone a guy. People we work with, teams and organizations. I haven't talked, and I talk to a lot of people. Yeah. Not one has said, you do this and this, watch out for that team next year. Don't you think at least one guy would have said that? Like, if they just do this, one tweak, one transaction, possibly 2 or 3. I have never heard that, and I talk to a lot of hockey people. You would think one guy would say that.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but it's again, that's a challenge that there's some players are wired for it. They said, doubt us all you want. Like, we're coming back healthy, and we're going to win. And even if it's not true, you got to think that way. And I hear what you're saying, but like that, the players, athletes, either you're wired for the Heat or you're not wired for the Heat. And maybe 10 years in, we know that they're just not wired for the Heat. You know, like the reality is, you talk like Rick Bowness is going off, I'm going to change the culture. You can't change core players and their DNA when they're 10 is what it is when they're 30. Yep. They either have it in them or they don't. And the reality is, the teams that win, they deserve to win because they earn that, because they have a passion for it. They've got a tenacity for it. They do everything right across the board, top to bottom. And the reason the Leafs haven't won is they don't deserve it. When you look at the way that they're wired, they approach it. I'm not just talking about the players, coaches, management, ownership. And again, to flip it on from Matthews' perspective, looking out, and this is why, again, when I was listening to him today, I'm like, for the first time in a long time, I'm looking at him differently and seeing him differently, is he's probably looking at ownership and wondering, like, if you want to keep me here, is it because you think I can help you win or help you make money? Like, are you keeping me because you sell 34 jerseys and tickets are going to be sold and you can sell the idea next year, hey, we're going to get back on the horse? Or are you keeping me because you actually believe I can lead this team? And it's two very different approaches from ownership. Very different.
You know what, Brian? I thought where you were going to go, too, where you watched Crosby, and I saw the McAvee interview as well. Think about what Sidney Crosby was being asked this offseason. You know, and they kept receipts, and they sent them out to everybody. Mm-hmm. We're all over those videos.
Can I just interrupt with the receipts? When you miss the playoffs for 14 years for the Buffalo Sabres with their little receipts tweets, there's not enough paper, okay? You haven't been in the playoffs for 14 years. And Pitt, you stunk too the last little bit, so cut the crap with these childish little videos. Oh, look at these guys talking about us. That's Sidney Crosby and Malkin you're dealing with here. They don't care. Why are people behind the scenes caring about that garbage? Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, it's social media. My point being is Sidney Crosby said, I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's where you were going originally, Brian, with where Matthews is. Sid's like, I'm going to see this through. And there's been a couple dark years here in the last couple of years for Sid, and that, you know, the group is retooled. Now they've made it back to the dance. You know, it would have been easy for him to say, you're right, like, look at what Pittsburgh's done. I'm going to be, you know, I'll be right there. He didn't do that, so that's where he said it opened the door. Sidney Crosby's wired differently than Auston Matthews. That's just That's the truth. But the point being, that's where you said the door is left open because he didn't have a Sid proclamation. He didn't have that. Where Ovi, how many dark years did Ovi have? Ovi, like these types of guys, it took them a long time. Now, Sid won early on, and then they won later on. Ovi, it took, 13 years, I think it was?
They made the playoffs a lot and won the division. They never, but still, yes, 100%.
But I guess my point, coming back to what I think the point you were trying to make is Matthews stopped short on saying, I'm in for whatever. Whatever they throw at me, I'm in.
Yes.
He didn't.
No, he did not. He did not. So that opens the door to speculation, which is going to happen. Ultimately, it's his career. He's going to make the call. But again, I'm sure he's wondering, like, what's going on behind the scenes? Because part of this, the Athletic, one of the things that came out of it was they spent all this money for 10 years and they only won 2 rounds. So why are we spending all this money? Maybe we can win 2 rounds not spending that much money. If that's the viewpoint, who's to say the owner and them aren't looking at Matthews the same way? This guy's been here for 10 years. He's helped us win 2 rounds. What's that? We need him? Like, what has it done for us? Like, what is this going to present to us in the future? And I really think that is a part of the dance here, as Matthews is looking at ownership, like, where are you going? What are we doing here? Are you going, to hire the right people? Are you going to spend the appropriate money? Do you want to win for the right incentives? I don't know. I mean, honestly, it's easy to say they make more money when they win. That is factually true.
It is true.
But are you winning because you want money, or are you winning because you want to fulfill a dream come true?
Yeah, and
Very
it's a
different.
fair question going back and forth where a star player could say, are you guys willing to spend appropriately for the team's success? And then the owner could come back, or whoever else, and say, we've spent so much on you guys winning the last 10 years, and you've won 2 rounds.
Exactly.
So what else would you like?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what it is. It's a standoff between two parties that both have flaws, that both may not be wired to win. And that's the problem. Like Matthews is 10 years into his career. Willie's 10 years into his career. They are who they are. They are what they are.
Were you surprised by Willie's 92 seconds?
No. I mean, that's William Nylander. It's a 10-year-old up there, uncomfortable, and just wants to get out. I'm not surprised, and I also wasn't surprised with how discombobulated everyone's viewpoint was. Everyone was on their own page. Goalie's talking about playing like this. The Riley's talking about his future. Willie's just leaving in 90 seconds. They're all over the place.
We got to play Willie after the break.
A disjointed organization right now. That's ultimately what it is. All right, Ray's coming up. Dreg's coming up today. Best Bet's coming up. The Jays losing again this afternoon. That's another series loss. They are 4-11 in their last 15 games. 4-11. And they got to start, too. They got to start from Corbin today. It wasn't the issue. The bats have killed them the last couple of games, and really all season for that matter. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Jays losing this afternoon in Milwaukee. That's another series loss. They're 7-11 on the season, 4-11 in their last 15. They just do not score runs right now, and they're off to Arizona over the weekend. So more on that a little bit later this afternoon. Ray Ferraro will join us. We've figured out who's playing who in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the most part. But still got some games tonight. Here's Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider. What's happening, Dregs?
It's the final insider trading this season until, I believe, the Stanley Cup final. So I don't know if you get the constant dings on my phone that come through when we're doing shows like this, but there's another one. My phone is just dinging off the hook, and I wish it was breaking news that could spice things up, but it's actually one of my cousins. My sister was texting. I got a text from some guy named Jeff O'Neill. Chris Johnson's been all over me, so that's the day it's been. That's the kind of day it's been.
Love it.
Well, Dregs, let me ask you this. The Athletic article that came out, we know how the market has received it, but have you talked to people throughout the league? Because to be honest, that's the weirdest part for me, is I was getting more messages from people outside the city of Toronto about the article.
Yeah, same for me. I think for those of us who are invested in the Toronto Maple Leafs as deeply as we are and have to talk about it on a day-by-day basis, was there shock or surprise in all of the sourcing that was done there and the information that was provided? I don't think there was. Very telling because it pulled the curtain back. But, I remember there was a little bit of pushback when we initially reported that, hey, Keith Pelley was more or less involved in hockey operations, right? And then Keith made the comment at his media availability that said, I'm not a scout, I'm not a coach, and I'm not involved in hockey operations. But, whether or not it was his place, traditionally speaking, in hockey operations, he felt at that point that he obviously needed to be, if not hands-on, at least witness firsthand what was going on. And he spent the better part of 2 days in the war room around the trade deadline. So that got some eyebrows raised, I would say, around the National Hockey League. And, I think that there were certain elements around it as well that pointed fingers at Brad Treliving and management for what they were doing or more what they weren't doing that struck a chord. But beyond that, I think it was just how deep the dive was that resonated across the league.
Dregs, how would someone like that know what they weren't doing? Like, with no experience of being in that room. Like, weren't doing according to what? What he thinks they should do in a war room? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what, O-Dog, there's probably two different versions of the story, right? And the one which was well-sourced in The Athletic, isn't one person talking. That's multiple people talking, I'm sure, to Chris Johnson and Jonas Siegel and James Myrtle, who authored all of it. I guess in respect to balance, if you're Keith Pelley, and obviously he's never been involved in a hockey operations group before, he's never had a job of this capacity, and he's had big jobs running networks here in Canada and then on the European tour there as commissioner. I mean, those are big executive positions. So should we be surprised that he's asking questions about specific hockey-related decisions? And I don't know what the answer is to that. I mean, the traditional hockey person, and you might be that guy that goes, you know what? That's not his place. Ask questions before trade deadline day. And if you want to ask questions after, that's fine too. But don't necessarily stick your nose in. See, again, the other thing here is, traditionally speaking, you guys would know this, but that's like a sanctuary, that room on deadline day, right? And you've got scouts in there, and you've got all kinds of different hockey ops people in there. There has to be a freedom and an openness to have really tough conversations. Because look, I mean, my view, if I'm in hockey operations, of one of our players might be different than the guy sitting beside me. But that's a healthy conversation, and it leads the general manager to make the decision that he needs to make, whether that player is in play and part of a deal, or that player isn't in play or part of a deal. And I think that was one of the many challenges that collectively these guys faced with Keith Pelley being so closely involved.
Darren, we were talking about the potential for a turnaround next year with this hockey team.
Yeah.
Have you had anyone in the industry speak to you and say, I'm a big believer that if they just do 2 or 3 transactions, they can fully get back on track and be a contender next year? Has anyone ever said that to you?
No, but again, it's not like I'm scouring other clubs and asking specifically about what they see in Toronto. The people I have talked to, and we're probably talking about 10 or more, to be fair, see the same thing that the majority of us see, right? But I will tell you this, and this is probably more to the point and more important. Maybe it doesn't matter what outside people believe. I can tell you that Auston Matthews, William Nylander, essentially the nucleus or the core of the Toronto Maple Leafs, my understanding is their messaging to Craig Berube, and then the man who also did separate exit interviews today, was they believe they can turn this thing around very quickly, as early as next year. And it's not a full rebuild as we continue to chew on. And look, I did you guys were on the panel when I did the depth chart last week, right? And then you attach the needs, and it looks a lot deeper than a retool to me. But these players talk about the team needing more bite and size up front. I'm not sure where you get that, but that's the challenge for management. And at least 2 mobile defensemen. Again, you have to have the assets to be able to acquire those sorts of pieces. And are those pieces available in this offseason? And how many other clubs are looking for that type of defenseman? Probably 30, to be honest. So I guess it doesn't matter what the outside world thinks. So it's that the principal players for the Toronto Maple Leafs actually believe they can turn this thing around in short order.
So would that suggest to you it doesn't matter what Matthews said today? It doesn't matter that Willie spent 90 seconds and got out of there, that we shouldn't read too much into it? Like those 2 players in particular are committed to staying with the Maple Leafs?
That's my understanding, but I think that we have to qualify that too, though, Brian. What happens if the new head of hockey operations sells a completely different picture, right? Now, again, if you revisit what Keith Pelley said, he told us they didn't believe that a full rebuild was in order, that the retool was the direction they were going to go. Maybe he and the group that is making this decision are sold that, okay, well, the knife might have to cut a little bit deeper than that. And then that management group, whatever it looks like, has that conversation with Auston Matthews and with Willie and everyone else that they would believe that they have to have that conversation with. And it probably doesn't go a whole lot deeper than those 2 guys. Maybe at that point, Matthews goes, all right, well, if this is a 3-4 year project, obviously my contract is up in 2 years, so I'm not likely to stick around for that. That wasn't the communication today, this morning. Again, Berube met with the group first, and then Brandon Pridham and whomever the other management types were involved, maybe he was alone, I don't know, had a separate meeting with those guys. And he was also acknowledged those players need to be better. Matthews needs to be better. Willie needs to be better, consistently better. So I think all bets are off if all of a sudden, retool turns into something bigger, or you get to a point next year where they've added some of the pieces that I just mentioned, and it's still not working, and you're upside down again. Maybe at that point, then their future becomes more of a question, but it doesn't seem to be today.
Where does the coach come into play on that? In other words, does it matter if Berube's back? Do they like that? Do they not like that? Where does this? Because he is hanging out, or he's hanging over all this as well, right? Craig Berube is the head coach of a team that, obviously we know what happened this year. You get the impression the players are going to voice their opinion on whether or not they think he should stick around, or how does that work?
I think so. Again, we're talking about the team leaders here. I think there has to be a conversation, doesn't there, with Auston Matthews? Again, whoever the head of hockey operations is, to say, all right, what do we think of the coach here? Traditionally speaking, there's nothing traditional about any of this. None of it in Toronto has been old school approach. Treliving did the same thing with Sheldon Keefe. He came in, and all right, I don't know Sheldon at all. I want to see what he's got, what he's going to bring, and how the team responds for a year, and then they made the decision on the coach. I think that a good number of the players would like to see Craig Berube back. I do, but I haven't done a poll. I don't know that it's 50% or 75% or what that number is. But again, it's a weird scenario when the current head coach, Berube, has his exit interview meetings with each individual player, says, all right, the pattern for success is we have to start playing for each other, playing as a team, right? I mean, when we play as a team, then those are the games that we won. And when we didn't play that way, those are the games we lost. But he's got no level of certainty here. And Pelley has been very upfront with that, right? That'll be up to whoever is in charge moving forward. But Berube is under contract for the next 2 years, so he's going to get paid by the Toronto Maple Leafs one way or another.
So, Dregs, you just talked about Keith Pelley. Do you get a sense from behind the scenes that he is inching closer to maybe narrowing down a list? I know it's been leaked that, he's hired a search firm at Neil Glassberg. I'm sure he's got his hockey observers that he talks to, all of the types of things that he has laid out publicly. But, again, it's the end of the season, and they've got to get to work. They've got potentially a top 5 pick. You've got lots of decisions to be made. This can't be something that lingers for the next 6 weeks. So do you get a sense that something sooner than later will be at least narrowed down?
Well, look, when the process first started and, the coach's agency, the search firm was hired, the timeline that I was presented at that point was they were targeting mid-May to make that decision and have somebody in place. Now, there's been some speculation this week in this market that it could happen as early as next week, a new general manager in place. And I ran that by some of the sources that I trust, and they just don't see that happening. They're not that optimistic. And I'm not going to spout out some of the names because it doesn't really matter. And then, frankly, some of these guys, they work for other clubs and whatnot. But the list of AGMs and hockey people and those around the hockey community that have been turnstiled through this process is seemingly growing day by day. And so it's impossible, aside from some of the media speculation on certain individuals, to establish where they're at, because, again, as of this week, they're still pumping people through. And they're having conversations face-to-face and on Zoom and all of those things. So it doesn't sound like they're in a place just yet where they're willing to pull the trigger. So maybe late April, early May is a better target.
With Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider. It's been an interesting 48 hours. It's been an interesting season, but that Athletic article obviously made waves. And, I said earlier in the show, it made me kind of look at Matthews differently, where I was kind of hoping he'd come in and put his stake in the ground, and I'm here, I'm sticking around. But, you read some of the stuff, you see the way some of the stuff's been playing out, could understand if he's wary of where this could be going or how this is going to operate. And I think there was a time where he had enough clout where he could probably move mountains behind the scenes and demand certain things. And I'm curious if that clout still exists, like the power of Auston Matthews within the organization. Is it the same today as it was 3 or 4 years ago? Is it different because Pelly's here, different ownership, because he hasn't played as well, because they've lost?
Yeah.
Like where do you see Matthews and his relationship, behind the scenes with MLSC?
Well, I think it's different. There's no doubt about that. I wouldn't say that it's weakened or it's lessened in any way. Why it's different is because of his contract status and the reality he's 2 years out. So he's looking at it and he's saying all the right things for the most part. I mean, Auston Matthews never says anything definitively, right? He always leaves some wiggle room when he talks to the media. And he did that again, today. He acknowledged the fact that he loves being captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But if, again, new general manager comes in and says, hey, fella, here's where we're at. We're reasonably confident that we're going to be able to tick a couple of the boxes, but we just don't have the wherewithal to add all of it. So what is your feeling? What is your appetite, for change? Are you interested in having that conversation now? And maybe they push back and say, we're not interested in having that conversation right now. And honestly, I think that's why it's different. I think Matthews is waiting for management of the Toronto Maple Leafs to show its hand, entirely show its hand. And then he and his agent, Judd Moldaver, can make an educated decision on what direction they feel that they need to go and what that timeline looks like. If it's this offseason, follow the Quinn Hughes path, or, is it in season or is it next offseason?
All right. Well, we'll see. We got a long offseason here in Toronto. Playoffs starting right around the corner. We'll chat again soon. Thank you, Dregs.
Thanks, guys.
Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider.
I do agree with your point, Brian, about, Ovi just was like a Washington Capital. It was like down year, there he is, Capitals jersey, and we have one down year out of 10, and all of a sudden we're talking about relocation possibly. Right. I do understand your viewpoint there. It's one of the few bright spots or opinions you've brought to the table in the last 10 days or so.
But you know what? They've been doing it with McDavid for 10 years. But
that was different, though. It was different because McDavid was pulling his weight. McDavid was the best player on the ice every single night. When they got to the playoffs, he was the greatest. And it was like, can he win there? This is, from the viewpoint of Matthews, like, this is getting ugly, I'm out. You know, it wasn't ugly in Edmonton necessarily.
No, they made the finals the last
But
couple
that's my
years.
point. It wasn't ugly. It was like a legacy chat. It's like, dude, you got to get a cup. You think you can do it there? Hopefully you can. That'd be great.
Right.
No one was,
Right.
I don't think, rooting against it. It was just, can you do it? This is like, because again, he didn't make the playoffs his first year in the league. First couple of years in Edmonton, it was ugly. Then they made it, and I think they missed. You know, and it was like, where are they going? And they're firing coaches, and there's new GMs, and so the viewpoint was different.
Right.
This to me is not the same. That's apples to oranges, because if again Matthews the last 2 years was scoring 60, and they were just and he was looking around saying, "Guys, you're killing me here." Now maybe it's a bit of column A, column B, but that's the point. He's not pulling his weight like McDavid always has. Right. He hasn't been great the last couple of years. And, you know, and McDavid never left. David's like, I'm signing. Let's go. Like, I'm sticking around. Let's play.
He wrote a letter to the Athletic.
Who cares what outside noise is? Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what's going to matter here. But, we'll see. Well, we got Ray coming up in 15. We'll get his take on all this. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Just keep it safe with me.
All right, Ray's coming up. We've got more NBA play-in to get through. You see the Clippers lost last night, so they're out. That means ever since Kawhi and Paul George and Steve Ballmer.
Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool.
Pretty cool. Toilets everywhere. They've missed the playoffs twice and made the playoffs and been out in the first round 3 times in the last 5 years.
I am so excited.
There's just another example of, I don't know how much old Stevie Bombs does on unorthodox things, but there's a guy at the top who probably doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He
spends
just writes
money,
a check for it, man.
writes
That's
a check, builds
That's
a new
right.
building.
And most importantly, he's a super fan, and he's involved, and it's dangerous stuff. Yeah. Dangerous stuff.
Listen,
Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool.
Those deals, man, that Paul George deal is the worst trade in professional sports history.
Yeah.
Like
and it's not just Shea. There's 12 other pieces.
Yes. Oh, they got Williams in with one of the picks. Like, he's the number 2 guy in Oklahoma City. They're still in the lottery this year because of that. Yeah. They got the Clippers pick, and it's in the lottery this year. It's absurd how awful that trade was. Hour 2 coming up. Jays lost again today. Ray Ferraro coming up. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
All right. Hour 2 OverDrive. Brian Hayes, Jamie McLennan, Jeff O'Neill. Do you remember, you ignoramus, last week when you said I was sticking my grubby fingers in the buffet? That was one of the most ignorant things you said.
I don't actually remember that comment.
Dude, you did. I was talking about my boy Matty Waite, the CEO of Longo's, how I was offering advice on the buffet.
Oh, that's right. Yes, of course.
And you said, oh, what were you doing? Sticking your grubby little fingers in there?
Yes.
Like I'm some kind of Neanderthal.
Right. I think I struck a chord here, which means the accuracy rate is
I just want to
high.
let you know,
Go to the tape.
Matty Waite, the CEO of Longo's Canada, came up to me and said, I appreciate your advice. There he is right there. And we made some changes to the salad bar. And now it's the best salad bar in Etobicoke. So your comment about putting my bare hands into a salad bar in public is completely ignorant, and that's the CEO of Longo's Canada.
You know why he made that comment? I will admit it. We used to have food drop-offs once a week, wasn't it? It felt like once a week. We would have
and I
food
used to
drop-off.
stick my fingers in food containers.
I watched you one time. Was it Portuguese chicken?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Portuguese chicken. That's right.
But they had the rice, and it was like a trough, and they had a big spoon, and he ate over top of it, and there was rice dropping down into the
community
container.
rice.
Yes.
Yeah, the community rice.
Jamie,
I know what's going on with this guy.
Yes.
I don't believe you. And B, we are long-time NHL players, and you just broke one of the major violations in the National Hockey League.
Cover for each other. I apologize.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Well, you know what? I love the word that you
eating from a buffet-style tray of rice from the spoon? That can't be real. Like, even saying that to my...
It was dropping out of your mouth and back into the.
I know
remember
exactly
going,
what
I've seen that before.
Let me guess, Hayes, you saw that one too.
Yeah, I probably did. I mean, I probably erased it from my memory, just like this chat from last week. I don't even remember it.
I love it, though. I love that you started with the word ignoramus. That is one of my favorite words. My mom used to say it all the time
ignoramus.
growing up.
Yeah, it's a great word.
Yeah.
Well, it is ignorant because I was like, we're talking about healthy buffets, and he goes, would you put your grubby hands in it?
Why? So the CEO just was randomly walking around. Longo says a CEO, too. Am I missing?
Yeah.
Like, look that up, Doogie, if this guy's even telling the truth.
His name is Matty Waite. He runs the whole operation.
I love
And he said,
that.
I love you. I love some of your ideas. And it's already the best salad bar in Etobicoke, and your ideas made it the best. It's like a we're in the project together on the salad bar.
Okay.
If you go,
whose idea was it to take the picture?
What's that? Mine.
What? Okay, so you wanted a picture with the guy. Okay.
Okay, but here's my question: what's the solution? Do you remember
Guys,
the
I
Bubble
don't even
Boy?
need to get into the details anymore. I just want to.
I don't remember what the problem was. Yeah, what was the problem? There's a solution.
I hurt my shoulder getting in to get some beans.
I see. Okay. I see.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I love that there is a salad
Thanks
bar.
for the support.
That's great.
I'm
well,
there for you.
That's great. Okay, there you go. You're changing lives.
And by the way, I'm gonna lie in bed and think about you guys. Like, I don't know what kind of stuff you do in commercial breaks, cupping farts and smell. I don't know. I'm just gonna bring it all up.
Dude, you're bringing this up on your own. I mean, you're talking about your own salad bar malfunctions.
No, I'm gonna get some gross stuff on you guys.
We
maybe
all
some
have
pick.
our-
I
I
don't know.
just feel like that. Like, I hope. Like, I can already just sense the Longo stock, like, sinking like a stone right now. And you are going to be responsible for that because you have changed the whole contraption of the salad bar. And I'll bet you other normal people are going to walk through there and say, this is really strange. I don't like this at all. And then how do they deal with it?
No, dude. I'm saving people from having shoulder surgery.
No, because now there's no awning, though. There's nothing blocking anything.
Dude, they didn't rip the awning off. They tilted the glass. There's a new angle.
But you need the appropriate coverage on something like that.
When I think of salad bar, I think of the term you always use, a drag bunt. This guy drag bunt.
That's
from
why
the
you
start
need
of
the
the
appropriate awnings. And this guy's got rid of all of them.
He's
And
gotten rid of the barrier.
that salad bar is going to sink like a stone now.
And I'll get Matty to call in one day and prove you wrong.
I hope you're right because I'm a big fan of that place. It's a great place.
I love it too. Yeah.
But I just hope they haven't taken your advice and it causes more problems. That's all
fair.
I'm going to say. All right, let's bring in Ray Ferraro joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. There he is. What's happening, Ray?
Again, it's like 132 weeks in a row. Come in here and I'm like, I'm trying to catch up. Like, what are we talking about? I get it's now the salad bar. There's a lack of protection over the food now.
Oh,
now
Ray,
there is.
I'm just going to sum it up.
wasn't.
No, I am just going to sum this up.
Oh,
I am a co-project manager for the salad bar at a grocery store in Canada, and it's the best salad bar in Canada. When you come to Toronto, if you're here for the play, listen to what I just said.
Yeah,
if you're
for
here
the
for the
Raptors.
That's a
playoffs-
funny one. That's a good one.
That is funny.
Raptors
I
tip
gotta
off on
slap myself.
Saturday.
I can't believe I just said that. I'll take you there. But that's all you need to know. I'm a co-project manager of the glass tilts at the salad bar.
How terrifying
Now-
is that?
It's scary.
And I just was going to say, that title on a business card, could you imagine getting handed that and go, geez, what the hell just happened to this place? I will tell you without question, it scarred me for life. This was over 20 years ago at a salad bar. I've never looked at a salad bar the same. This little kid, it was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. He was at the salad bar and he's putting like celery and cheese and whatever the hell else he was putting on there. he takes a piece of pineapple and puts it in his mouth, hates it, and takes it out and puts it back and puts it back. I cannot eat a salad bar.
Shut up, dude.
I'm telling you, I
can't. I got one worse for you. On a cruise ship, a lady had her little lap dog, and she let the little dog lean in and start chewing away at some of the food. And she pulled him back, and somebody behind her goes, "I don't think that's allowed."
Yeah, well,
and she goes, "Oh, mind your own business." The little chihuahua was just chewing on the food and just
That's why you need awnings. That's why you need awnings. You need protection.
And that's why me and Maddie Waite got the new awning right.
Okay. You and Maddie Waite. Shout out. Well,
there you go.
Ray, it's great to have you
something.
on. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Where do we start? I mean, the Leafs over the last 48 hours, there was the article in The Athletic that detailed a lot of stuff behind the scenes, more so with ownership and kind of the way the team is being run. I guess we can start there. Like, you know, a lot of it, there were details about player perks, and that's the kind of stuff the average fan doesn't really, they can't necessarily relate to it because you look at it and say, oh, a guy making $12 million has got to pay a little bit more for a T-shirt. Like, wow, cry me a river. Right. But as a player, how much value is in that? If you're a pending free agent and your understanding is the team is run differently today than it was in the past, how might you respond to that?
Oh, I think it's stuff like this gets said a lot, but I think it does really matter your stature as a player, because a lot of times things will, you know, get mentioned that about a team does this or they don't do that, or they don't travel the same way, and you can say, well, no player is going to go there. It's a pretty good job. Players will go there. You might lose the very top end in some cases. Toronto's always going to have enough money. They're always going to have enough of a, you know, an impact. Like, people will be interested. It doesn't matter whether they got to pay 30% for a shirt or they get a 30% discount or a 50% discount. Like, honestly, that the guys that are there, they will go, well, that's kind of sucks. Like, that kind of cheap. Like that. And then you move on to the next thing. The agents would be the ones, of course, that advise and impact their client, the player, with the way they interact with the general manager. Hey, it's a little different there. We're having a little trouble with this part of the contract, but the facilities are great, right? They got their own practice rate. The facilities are good. They're an impactful franchise. Like, none of that's going to change. What I would be concerned with, I guess, is people that don't know the hockey business or don't know players and the evaluation of players. I mean, like, you can read the data, and you should read the data, and you should connect it and marry it to what your scouts say about if a player has some intangible, like, do they have courage? Will they fight for a puck? Or is it just all off a spreadsheet? Because that never works. It never does. And I find that those that rely solely on data disregard anything that a hockey person would say every bit as much as some of the old school hockey people discard analytics. And I think it's both foolish. Like, the value is clear in both, but if a manager, an upper manager, is coming into the trade deadline and suggesting a deal, I would think you're probably got too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, Ray. You know, I think going through that article, I mean, what is the
stunning?
I'm sure you read it. You know, what jumped off the page for you? Was it Pelly at the trade deadline in there with an AI guy? Was it, you know, some of the other things that were laid out? Was it the comments by Stolars at the start of the season? The lack of response on Matthews? Like, the article was jarring because there were so many different things in the timeline.
Right.
Like, what stood out for you?
I would say, well, that's a good way of putting it, is that it was kind of like a bumper car. Like, it went into the railing here and then it bumped across the track and hit another thing. Like, all those things you mentioned were all pretty, like pretty interesting items. The fact that, they don't have a president, and then Keith Pelly would go in there with a paper, a document saying about deals that they thought would be possible. If you haven't been in the conversations for the previous months, how would you know what deal is even possible? Maybe you're spinning tires. You got too many people suggesting something at the very end of the road. If they wanted to be involved earlier, be involved earlier. To me, it's a lack of structure and communication in management, and that stuff always flows downhill. It always flows there. It confuses decisions. You lose clarity as to who's in charge. You lose a direction as to what are they actually trying to accomplish. Like all of those things. If Keith Pelly, who now doesn't have a hockey president, decides to get involved at the deadline with another analytical guy that's not been around the team and the discussions, it makes no sense. I'll tell you, I know this just, from people that I know. I mean, obviously Cammie's one of them, but the analytics people, they're in hockey discussions all year. They don't just show up and say, hey, here's my document and read it. They're involved in there's back and forth, and you try and formulate a plan and who you're looking for. And I don't know, what are the Leafs looking for? Like, I think, what became really clear, Noodles, out of that article was people that think this is a short turnaround, they're in the wrong lane. It's just not going to be.
Well, the reality of sports, like any other business, it starts at the top. Like the best run operations, it starts with the owner, and then it goes down to the president, CEO, and a management coach, et cetera. I mean, that's just the truth. And if you're not well run, it's impossible to have success. But if we get into the room next year, and let's say Matthews returns, which I'm not sure if he will. I mean, we'll see what happens into the future here. But let's presume that he returns. Is like him driving the bus and showing up day one in shape, ready to play, giving off the positive vibes, preparing for a great season, maybe, dragging everyone into the fight. Like if you're in that room September 10th next year and Matthews is the captain and Matthews is ready to speak, what do you want to hear from him, and how much value do you place? It goes without saying, if he scores 50 next year, that's going to help, right? He stays healthy and has 110 points, that's going to help. But how much of the turnaround could be on his approach, his attitude, his mentality, his leadership, the intangibles of Auston Matthews? Where do you stand on that next year?
I think those guys, we might have mentioned this before, I think the players like that, sometimes I don't believe they understand how large their impact is. It's outsized to anybody else on the team. Of course, they're play because they're better. They're great players. They can do special things. But the way they carry themselves, everybody's kind of got one eye on them all the time when you're that type of player. So I think that's it is so critical that if he's back and that he's in a mental state that he's happy to be back, that he's enthusiastic. Like there seems to be two different Matthews, like the Matthews we see publicly and the one that the guys seem to like so much. Mm-hmm. Right? We don't see that. He's very guarded in that, and that's totally his right to be that way. But there has to be an energy to him, because that seeps out more than if a third line left winger has a great energy. That can only impact so much. He would impact just about everything. Yeah. But if you look at that, say he comes back, he's in great spirit, great health, ready to go. The holes on their team are pretty obvious, and there's not one. So the quick turnaround part, like, how are you going to do that? There are no free agents. How are you going to make deals that plug these holes without creating another hole? Like that's where the real challenge starts for those that think they can flip this in 6 months.
Absolutely. And furthermore, are you just trying to get back into the playoffs, or are you trying to win a Stanley Cup? Again, those are two different objectives. Like 98 points is different than we're ready to actually win. You know, like I thought Brad Marchand had a great quote today where he said, you know, you either win the Stanley Cup or you don't. Like you either win it or you lose it. Like, in other words, who cares if we just snuck into the playoffs and lost in the first round? That's not good enough for us. And that's a mentality that needs to permeate through every group. But it's a special mentality to have, and it's not one that I think a coach can change, a GM can change. Like I heard Rick Bowness and I heard Todd McClellan last night. Like, it's the core players, the 5, 6, 7 guys, the leaders, the older guys. They are who they are. They are what they are, and they're gonna. They're gonna drive everything, right?
You know what I heard out of both of those guys last night, and I think more and more, I believe this is that the league is so close. If your team does not have a competitive drive, a competitive spirit, a fight, doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to win.
Yep.
And so Detroit's got some really nice players. I did 4 of their games down the stretch. Of the things that they miss is a competitive spirit. They miss a fight. You remember the old Red Wings? You know, the game would be going along, and then, you know, Joey Kosher would kind of wander around, and you'd be like, oh, that's different. Or Darren McCarty and Draper and Maltby, that grind line, they'd change things. Like, there was a competitive spirit to them. And when I look at the Leafs, one of the things that I see that's not there is that. And that's one thing that Florida has by the bucketful, is they've got competitive spirit.
It's such an important point to make that I think gets lost a lot. It's not. It's a game. It's the same game when you were 10 as you are when you're 30.
Thank you very much.
It's a game.
Yes.
Like in the game, you earn it. Like, you deserve it, because and sometimes the breaks don't go your way. Sometimes you don't have the talent.
Sometimes you get goalie.
Right.
Sometimes you get goalie. There are times where it's like, hey, we had the competitive spirit, but we don't have talent, or we can't score. Sure. But the reality is, the game, the kids that won when they were 10, they won because they couldn't wait to get to the rink, and they'd cry if they lost. And, like, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but it's a game. You drop the puck, the game's the game. You know,
and
to steal a line from the wire.
Further,
go ahead.
Sorry, say your line.
No, the game's the game. Go ahead.
To take it a step further, when you're in the big leagues, the season ends. There's a lot of, like, big time distractions for guys. They can go to the Bahamas. They can go to Europe. There's beaches. There's a lot of high-end stuff in life that could be waiting for them. You talked about, like, the competitive spirit, Ray. The guys that want to stick around and play till July 1st and get an opportunity, like that kind of intensity and competitive spirit is what you talk about, dragging a team into a fight. Like, your top-end players have that competitive spirit, like Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. Marty Necas knows going into these playoffs he better have it. Or, like, there's just that's how you drag other people, because Nathan McKinnon is committed to playing until July 1st. It's just like Steph Curry all those years, LeBron James. If you were on LeBron James' team 8 years in a row, he's like, we're going to the finals, so you're either on board or you're not. That's what I do.
Absolutely.
That's my season.
Wow.
Well, I'll give you a great example. Is last year Tampa lost in the first round again, and he does it all the time. But maybe, you know, people might not understand or know this about Nikita Kucherov. He takes 10 days off. Then he's back on the ice. And he brought Brandon Hagel with him. And he's like, do you want to work? Because Hagel said, I'd like to work on some stuff. And Kucherov's like, yeah, you coming out? Then we go to work. That's 10 days after the season. Not that they skated every day, but they were right back into it for just what you're talking about, If you're going to play with Nikita Kucherov, you got to be ready to work. And Auston Matthews
golf for 10
can
days,
do that.
and then he's back on the ice.
Auston Matthews can do the same thing. His importance is outsized because he should be one of the game's best players. And if he says, I'm getting back to work, who wants to come? Well, guys will come. If a third line left winger says, I'm going back to work, everybody says, well, you should, so you can stay in the league. Matthews can change. Guys like Matthews can change the air around the team quicker than anybody else.
Huge. And I think that's such an important point to make. And we'll see if he sees it the same way, how much we know about what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, we're not privy to everything. Right. But you're right. He sends out a group chat. Hey, August 1st, I'm flying in, and we're doing skates every other day. They'll have 30 guys on the ice.
Guys will show up
on that. Absolutely.
Have to.
They will.
And, you talk about culture and all that. That's off the ice. It's the same thing. Auston says we're all going for dinner. Okay, I guess we're all going for dinner. The guy on the fourth line is not like, I'm not going to that. He's like, I got to be there, of course. I'm going. Yeah. Absolutely. Where are we going? Like, let's do it. That's the way it works, man.
And the coaches that are pissed off in the last couple of days, guys, that's exactly what Bones was saying the other night. He's like, it got to hurt to lose, and he felt like there was not enough guys that were pissed off that they lost. And he said, that's why we're out of the playoffs. Like, Rick Bowness signed an extension today.
Yes, he did.
He's not going anywhere. He's going to help change that culture. And, it'll be interesting to see what he has to say behind the scenes to see who's actually wearing a jersey for them next year and who's not. Because he's probably going to point out to Don Waddell, like, there's probably one or two guys that he saw something that he wouldn't have expected.
Now, how about, I will say about last night, Bones looked like he couldn't even put a sentence together. He was so mad.
Exactly.
and like, it was like, I'm like, oh my God, his head is literally going to blow off. And I wouldn't have wanted to be Todd McClellan's tie. I don't know if you noticed, he didn't have his tie on when he did it. That tie must have been ripped off with a force of like a gale. Like he looked like he was going to, I don't know, strangle a word. He was furious. And I was like, holy, those guys have had it.
Yeah. That's a long grind, man. And they were like, Bonus wasn't even there all year, like he showed up halfway through the party. And, McClellan obviously was there for the whole thing and was there last year as well. But it's, we got the Stanley Cup playoffs here, right? Do you have, everyone's asking, everyone wants to know, like, who's going to be the last two teams standing? I don't really have a great read on it. Do you have a read on this, East and West, and where it could end up landing?
No, you know what? I'll stick with what I had at the start of the year, which was Tampa and Colorado, only because I don't want to pick 25 different teams. But as I was going through the series in the first round, I'm like, I'm either going to get 7 of these right or I'm going to get crushed. Like the point difference in most of the series doesn't matter. Like Philly and Pittsburgh, like, what does it matter? Philly's playing great. You could say, oh, Pittsburgh's the favorite, but really, are they? Like Buffalo and Boston. I know Boston's, the second or the first wild card, but like, would it be like this immense world-beating upset if they won? Of course not.
No.
But they're like, I think once you get to this point, almost anybody can win a series at this point. They really can. So I get, I'm opening up in Pittsburgh on Saturday, and then I'm in Buffalo Sunday and going back and forth between those series. And I mean, could you imagine how loud that arena is going to be in Buffalo on Sunday?
Amazing.
Going to be awesome.
Yeah, amazing.
It will be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's starting up on Saturday, and we got 3 Canadian teams in the dance. We're still waiting to see on who Edmonton's going to play, but it's going to be a fun couple of months, like it always is. All right, buddy. Great to catch up with you.
Are you gonna
go ahead?
Oh, are you going to be doing studio, or is this other job a full-time thing?
I have OverDrive, and during the day I help out. I'm a project manager at Longos.
I mean, you got to be focused on managing that project. So I just wanted
When I get my business card, when I get my business cards, I will send you one.
You need the Longos apron. Like when you walk in, there's going to be the guy with the apron there.
Need one. And a hairnet.
I'm going to go see Maddie tomorrow, and I'm going to go get my apron, and I'll have it on OverDrive tomorrow.
And a hairnet, though.
That would
true.
be.
You do not
have to wear a hairnet. Have to. It's mandatory tomorrow over the headset.
Do you know what I would be concerned with, though, fellas, is what about when it gets hot in July and he's wearing the apron without a T-shirt?
Oh, yeah.
That is trouble.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, you're your own man. You've created your own job, so I'm sure you can do whatever you want.
And then wiping my back fat sweat and then putting my hands on the live vegetables and cutting them.
Just a chihuahua, get that chihuahua in there, and then you can really complete the whole picture. All right, Ray.
Fabulous.
Good catching up with you, buddy.
Have a good one,
Do it
boys.
again soon.
We'll talk to you soon.
Ray Ferraro, ESPN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Red Tag Days are here. Check out the Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Tundra pickup trucks, both available as hybrids. Visit Maple Toyota right near Canada's Wonderland in the Maple Auto Mall. All right, there you go.
Longos. I love it. Now, apparently that guy's not the CEO. He's the manager. That's what Doogie put in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Dude, what does Doogie know? Honestly, what is he Googling?
Probably,
I would imagine the CEO, is the guy.
Is a Longo?
Yeah, it's like
is that what you're
Longo.
suggesting? The family is still
Maddie is
running
the president of the Queensway location.
Okay.
Oh, I
like that.
Fair enough.
Like
we
that.
love Maddie. We
I
love
like it
Maddie.
a lot.
Shout out to
I love
Maddie.
it. Shout out. All right, there you go. We've got games in the NHL tonight. We got playing games. The Jays are leaving Milwaukee, dropping 2 of 3. They lost again this afternoon. They can't hit. They can't. They cannot
let's just
hit
put
for
it on
power,
the table.
man.
They got too many injuries, and they flat out stink
Right now, they're not a good baseball team.
No.
Yeah.
No.
They're like last night was a weird. Like Rogers came in and they just dinked and doinked, and it just got away from them last night. But like today, they just don't have any hot hitters right now, and it's eerily similar to this time last year. But with the injuries, it makes it feel even worse, right? It feels even more distant to believe they're just going to flip a switch. And even with guys like Savage, right, who I'm obviously very excited to see him return, he's a young guy.
Yeah,
he can't be your savior.
Yeah. And last year was some kind of mythical fantasy land where this guy comes up out of a movie and starts throwing lightning bolts towards home plate. Who knows where that magic went, man?
Right. Exactly. And it's I'm not deviating from a belief that he'll have a great career, be a great
but there
pitcher.
might be real life growing pains.
Absolutely. Like he may come up and get hit and get hit hard, and it's like, okay, you got to let him grow. So it's not good. And Bieber's on the 60-day IL, and they're scrambling right now. There's no other way to put it. They're scrambling right now. All right, best bet still to come later in the hour. OverDrive continues up on TSN 4.
We had to make a choice. But what we didn't realize was how far we were willing to go.
All right, best bets later in the hour. Sure you guys made your PGA picks yesterday. Hopefully you made some live picks too.
Yeah.
Because it could be the end of the road.
You weren't here yesterday. What a scumbag move that was. This list of your picks comes floating in, and I'm like, oh, really? So I looked at it. I'm like, why don't I just not even make them? It was over.
It's a loaded
Scott.
field. I got Ludwig, and he's off to a great start. But, I mean, you still had the opportunity to take some guys. Your boy Jordan Spieth.
I caught about 10 minutes of it today, and this is what I saw on the first hole. Scotty Scheffler gets up there and rips one OB. Ooh. So anybody like me or you, Hayes, we're looking at an 82. For you, probably more.
Yes.
This guy rips another one right down the middle, knocks it to 5 feet, and makes it for 5. It was just like, and then he birdies the next hole. And it was like anybody else that could have been catastrophic. You saw guys at the Masters, your boy, what's his name? That was hitting knee-high missiles around the Potgeeters.
Oh yeah, Potgeeter, dude. That guy.
He had that bad start, and he was gone. Dude.
82. He shot an 82.
This guy blows one out of bounds, and he just said, "All right, watch this. Down the middle,
still on the course. He's 3 under on the 17th tee, I believe it is. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll probably win the tournament.
He very well could. He very well could. But yeah, the live stuff, we'll see, man. I guess they're having technical difficulties right now.
Dude,
so nothing's
someone's
on
gonna
TV.
Say, I don't care how much money you have. Someone's going to say, that's enough. Like, we're just getting crushed. There's no money coming in. They're not making any money. And I don't care how rich these guys are. They look at the books once in a while, and they're just going to say, we don't love golf this much. Sorry, it's over.
F1, the Premiership, like the PIF owns a lot. They have money spread out throughout the world in sports, and they're pulling out of a lot of different things. I guess they had a business deal with Tom Brady on, was it flag football, I think? And they're pulling the shoot on TB12. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're looking at it saying the world's in a different place today, needless to say, and we're out of here. But it'll be interesting to see if LIV implodes at some point, how the PGA Tour decides to handle this. So, yeah, the RBC Heritage Open continues down at Harbour Town. Jay's back in action over the weekend. Raptors game 1 on Saturday. And I guess the Raps, as of right now, that's what we're waiting for, right? Give us some positivity. Cleveland, not a great defensive team. The Raptors' record against teams that don't defend that well, very positive this season. 3-0 against the Cavs. We're trying to find some positive momentum here.
You think they can win?
I think they got a shot. Yeah, I mean, they're underdogs, deservedly so. They're going to hit the road. Cleveland's a good team. They can score, but I think they can grind it out. I mean, they were a good team this year. Like, credit to the Raptors, man. They really turned things around. Like, they're running.
They did.
Yeah, they had a very positive season. Are they a perfect team? No. But no one expected that.
One, possibly two more like big-time impact players to even consider do some damage. But you mentioned Cleveland, and they were unreal. I want you to explain this one to me. They were unreal last year. They had an incredible start to the season. I don't know what their record was. And Indy beat them in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And Indy went on a run to the finals. Can you explain to me what happened to Indy this year?
Well, I mean, their best player got injured, obviously, going into Game 7 of the NBA Finals, right? So he's been out all year, and that's a good question. Beyond that, they had a horrible start, injuries, and they basically tanked.
Yeah.
Like, that's effectively what happened. Like, they lost their best player. They had a couple of other injuries, and they said, screw it, we're tanking. They pulled up Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing.
Well, there's another example, kind of a downturn. Does their best player just stand up and say, well, check, please? Like, probably not.
No. Probably not. No. Not in Florida, exactly. They're like, let's get the band back together and prove this was a one-off. Or in Indy.
The difference, though, is Florida had, at one point, 11 regulars out.
Yes.
The Leafs didn't have 11 regulars out by the end. It was Matthews and Tanev, really. The guy, like, everybody else was.
Now, they're goaltending at different times, right, Noodles?
Yeah,
but
that's fair. That's fair. You're right.
Like,
but, they at least had goaltending, like either Woll or Stolarz. Now, Stolarz, it's pretty interesting what he said today. He said the comments didn't really resonate in the room. Probably resonated more outside the room. Fair enough.
About his comments earlier in the season, you mean?
Yeah, I should have prefaced that. Yeah, his comments earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he didn't have a great season. He didn't get on track. He never really got into a groove. He needs a good summer to come back. And they've got decisions to make because they've got 3 goalies that are NHL caliber. If the Hildebeest will require waivers, they're going to have to move one of those guys.
Yes, they are.
Or they're going to lose one on waivers. So there's decisions to be made on all different fronts for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Who do you think has the most value around the league? If you're a GM, you need a goalie. Stolarz with his new deal kicking in, Wall with a year or two left, Hildeby where he is in his career.
How can you even marry the two words like unreliable and valuable together? Like, how could you?
If they have to trade one, you better hope that someone sees one of them as a guy that they want to acquire.
Okay, but the other team that's looking at value in the player isn't the first thing they look at and they say, this guy, you can't trust him. He's never healthy.
Well, maybe Hildeby. I don't know. He's healthy, I guess.
Yeah, but I think Hildeby is 3 out of talent pool as far as the 3 of them. I think Joseph Woll has the highest upside. And, I believe him and Hildeby are close in age. I'd have to double check here. Mm-hmm. I think Hildeby is 25, and I think Woll is 26 or 7. So they're close. Like Joseph Woll, for me, has from a talent perspective, the upside there. Now, again, He has some struggles, like other goaltenders in the league. But that would be a guy that I would circle and say there's value there. And if you bring him into the right situation, again, like I think that he can flourish. I at the start of the season, guys, I said that was one of the biggest storylines. It's who's going to grab that spot. And we know what Stolarz is. We didn't know what Joseph Woll was. Can he be a 55-game starter? Never got to do that because he missed, the first 6 weeks of the season.
I think the answer is no.
Correct.
I mean, at
so
this point, he's just not. Yeah, they're both tandem guys.
Yep, that's fair. But, you know, if you ask the question who has value, I think Joseph Woll has value to other teams as a tandem guy. Absolutely.
Okay. So that is the question, though. Is he the goalie you want to keep? Like, do you trade the guy that you know you can trade, even if he's the one that you want to keep? Probably not. So let's say the new GM goes, I want to keep Joseph Woll. Then you got to figure out Stolarz or Hilderby. And
they both have value. I mean, Stolarz is proven.
Yeah, he's hurt all the time, man.
Agreed.
Man. Like, he's hurt all the time.
Well, the thing is, Brian, he had never played these many games. If you go back in his career, the most he'd played, I believe, was 28 in a season. So you couldn't tell if he was hurt or not because a lot of his games were spaced out. The last 2 years, they weren't spaced out. He was,
he was playing.
To play 40.
Some of the models that I've used, Stolarz has the most value.
I like that.
Enough.
I like that. Okay. Well, I mean, but here's the thing. If you're acquiring a guy and saying we're going to play him 20 games, you're just not getting much in return for that. The Leafs can sell him as, we think he's a 41 start tandem, and the other GM's like, actually, he's a 20-game tandem guy. Then who determines the price and who wins that battle? That's the question.
You're right. It's who's asking, though, and I'll give you an example. If they look at it like James Reimer's 38, if you look at Ottawa's situation, okay, Linus Ullmark has played a career high in games this year, but I still believe on the top end he's probably a 50-game guy. You need somebody to play 35 games. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm saying if you believe that Anthony Stolarz on a reasonable ticket, now they might not want to pay that much on a number 2 guy, but those are the types of situations you look for and say, we've got a tandem guy who's a 45, 50-game guy. Can Stolarz give you 30? I believe he can. And I think that's where the value. Now, remind me, 3.8? Is that what it is?
Something in that range.
And 3
for
or 4
years, I thought it was.
So, again, if you have the stomach to do that, here's something crazy. Florida decides that they're going to move past Bob. And they've got Tarasov, and would they bring Stolarz back at 3.8? They're familiar with him.
Yeah, they are.
Something like that. Again, I'm getting crazy and just thinking outside the box.
Well, but it's not that crazy. I mean, these are going to become a reality in the next month and a half. Someone is likely to be traded. Maybe not on that timeline, but at some point you're going to lose someone to waivers. I mean, unless you carry 3 goalies, I guess that's a possibility next year. But that can be very tricky depending on the cap. So, that's something that's going to have to be sorted out. And, I'm curious, the head coach is a big part of this. Like, what happens? Does he stay? And, again, I think Keith Pelly's going to have a say in that. Like, I really do. I know that Pelly said it'll be up to the next GM. But in saying that, he continued with that answer and said the head coach would go all the way to ownership on whether or not they would fire him. And if money is a priority for them, and it's a business, yet it feels like it is. He's got 2 years left, Craig Berube. And then you got to pay the next guy $4 or $5 million, presumably. Are they going to bite that bullet? I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, the next GM may be in a position where if Keith Pelly wants to keep Craig Berube, then you're stepping in and you're keeping Craig Berube.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you think. If you're taking the job and your boss is saying, I want to keep the coach, and the way Berube was speaking today, it kind of it felt like he may know something we don't know.
Yeah, and there'll be all kinds of back and forths like that, Brian, where it's like, do you like this? Well, maybe not. Well, now you do like it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, those conversations, I don't know. I am just so glad it's over with. And I just.
But here's to I think amplify that point. Mike Gillis is the name that keeps coming up. Hasn't been employed in 10 years.
I have no idea.
I agree with you.
10 years.
I agree with you. but a guy, I would presume, incredibly desperate to get back in the league. I don't think he's putting up a fight with Keith Pelly. If Pelly goes, you can have the job if you keep Craig Berube.
Yeah, that's why you go sniffing out a guy that hasn't been around for 10 years because you say, you got to do this, and the guy goes, okay.
Yeah.
But
okay.
The problem is now you're starting a job with one hand tied behind your back. I'm sorry. The new person coming in doesn't get directive from Keith Pelly. He gives Keith Pelly the directive of how he wants to run the organization, that the decisions to be made from a hockey standpoint.
Ideally, that is true, Noodles.
You would think, Jamie, that would be the normal chain of command, but you've seen what's been going on here.
I understand that, but I think Keith Pelly, I want to give him credit and say, at least give him the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah.
Dude, project manager, get it together.
Exactly. But I want to, because he doesn't want to do the day-to-day. He's actually said that. I don't want to be involved in the day-to-day.
He's got a lot on his plate. Raptors, TFC, Argos.
Exactly. So what he has to do is believe the person that he hires. You can go, I'll talk to you in a week. Yes, if there's some financial stuff that comes up, decisions to be made, all of that's going to be laid out before that person takes the job. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to be, the new person has to have the plan laid out with Keith Pelly already and saying, I'm sorry, but that's not an option. I'm going to come in and I'm bringing my own general manager, my own coach, my own whatever, scouts, head scouts, you name it, development people. That's the type of stuff. And I can't imagine what's going on within the Leaf organization right now, the amount of people that are on pins and needles because they were either trees people or they are trying to justify their job. They've got 9 people in development. I talk to people all the time. Most organizations have 2 or 3 in development. Like there's overkill in every department with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's not just because they're rich. To me, there's just way too many.
Just bloated. Yeah, it's a bloated budget.
And that's what they want to do. They want to blow out a bunch of stuff and just use artificial intelligence. I'm not kidding.
That's
anyway. I'm not kidding.
That's
you think your stats packs are great? Why would we even want your information when we can go on artificial intelligence and get this info? That's what we're talking about here. It's crazy stuff.
Well, again, we'll see. We'll see how they do it and what happens. But listen, the reality is there's a portion of the fan base, not all of them clearly, may not be a majority, that would be very welcoming of a complete fresh start across the board, and that includes all the core players, the coach, everything. Yeah. And that would be very challenging because what would come with that is 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You're Chicago, maybe you're San Jose. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
But there are fans that would not be disappointed. They would celebrate that. Now there are fans that would be on the opposite side of it that don't want to see it happen. But they ultimately, the news is going to come down in the next couple of months in terms of what they're going to do, and the reaction is not going to be unanimously positive or negative. Best Bets coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
RJ Decker, Tuesday on CTV. Stream next day on Crave. An all-new Sullivan's Crossing, Sundays on CTV. Stream next day on Crave. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. The NHL games tonight, they're tough to get a read on, I got to be honest.
Oof.
But you're getting plus money. I know L.A. is still jockeying for position, but Calgary's at home getting pretty big plus money. I'm on it. I'm on Calgary tonight because L.A.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not convinced they even want Edmonton in the first round. And I know that they'd have to play a tough opponent, but L.A.'s not a very good team. They're really not that good, but they found a way to get in. Huge plus money. Calgary at home. I'm on it. I'm on it tonight. Best Bets powered by FanDuel.
Noodles, you're going to watch Vancouver, Edmonton, aren't you?
I'm going to watch all the games. I'm going to watch Anaheim. Nashville.
Well, Edmonton's playing, jockeying for position a little bit. Again, LA is.
I'm going to watch all of those games. I mean,
well, Seattle, Colorado, there's literally no point in watching that game.
And they're not playing anybody tonight. But my understanding,
San Jose, Winnipeg, no.
No, I'm not going to. I am going to watch the ones that have repercussions because it's going to set the set schedule because we don't know who's playing.
Right.
We know we got the league announced who's playing on Saturday to Monday. That's it. That's all. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to know if we knew who's playing who for the whole first round.
I think Edmonton rolls tonight, holds on to that 2 seed in the Pacific.
And they got Anaheim.
Yeah, which I think is a good matchup for them. They got a lot of experience and.
Vancouver's won some games recently, and a team that doesn't care is going home tomorrow. You never know, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Who knows?
I hear you.
Right.
We'll see. It's over tonight. End of the regular season. As of tomorrow, we launch into playoff mode. Stanley Cup playoff mode. Game 1 for the Raptors on Saturday. Jays in action tomorrow. All right, good stuff. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web, and up on YouTube Live. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Next week, me and Maddie will host you guys at the Salad Bar. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then with hairnets on.